How you doing? This is Sean McVeigh with Sean's Outdoor Adventures. In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up and tune this Dragon X8 compound bow. That's right, I'm going to show you how to set up and tune the Dragon X8 compound bow. This bow goes from 0 to 70 pounds. They do make a model that has a peak weight of 60 pounds. Okay, so in our box of accessories, first thing I'm pulling out here is the stabilizer. The stabilizer screws into the front of the bow, but before installing the stabilizer, we want to locate the bow sling. This is the bow sling right here. This is actually going to be held on by the stabilizer. So I'm going to get these two, and I'm going to get a little Loctite. Loctite, blue Loctite. It's very important, blue Loctite, because this can be removed. However, blue Loctite helps to hold things in place. You got to realize that when a bow goes off, there is some vibration involved, and ultimately that can vibrate loose screws. Loctite helps to hold them in place. So I put a little dab of Loctite on, and I screw in the stabilizer. I like to, when I get close to it being fully tight, I like to rotate this leather piece that holds the bow sling, and I like to, as it's making that last little nudge of tightness, I like to rotate that into place, as you can see here. Now I'm going to follow suit and use the same configuration that they're using here to hold the bow sling in place, and put it around the grip and into the other side, feeding it through. Now, one thing I always check, you want the very top of the bow sling loop to not go higher than the bottom of the shelf here. It's very important because you don't want that getting up in the way or getting in the way of arrow flight. So it's very important to keep the top of the loop below the shelf on the riser here. The next thing I'm going to take out is my arrow rest. Now this is an arrow rest that has bristles. The arrow will pop down into the rest, and that'll hold it in place. And this is a very common style rest, especially for beginners, because it holds the arrow in place. There's not a lot of extra working parts that you're at risk of going wrong or setting something up incorrectly. Now there is a D-loop already installed on this bow. This particular arrow rest, it does have a vertical adjustment on the rest, which is good because in case our D-loop isn't exactly where we need it, we need to be able to move the rest a little bit to get the correct arrow flight. So there's a little washer with our bolt that comes with the arrow rest. We're going to bolt this. This is going to go on the outside over here, and as you can see, there's two bolt holes. Why is that? Well, it doesn't give you two bolts. You could bolt it with two bolts for extra security if you had to, and that'll also keep it from pivoting once it's on there. But another thing is it gives you more adjustability. If you use the back bolt hole, you can move it back a little bit if you needed to. When would you need to do that? In fine tuning. I'm not going to get into it in this video, but you can torque tune your bow. And what that means, it's a little bit more of an advanced thing that a lot of target archers do. But torque tuning is you intentionally torque the bow at longer distances to see how much that makes your arrow go off point. And you can slide the arrow rest back a little bit and do the test again until you find a sweet spot that'll help minimize the amount that torquing the bow will throw your arrow off. This is something that not many beginners do because it involves you having proper form to begin with, and beginners are usually just establishing the basics, and so it's best to not worry about that. I would just bring it all the way up to the riser here and get it fairly close, maybe just a hair back to give us room for our adjustments, and lock it in there. Now this does come with a set of Allen wrench keys, which is very helpful, especially if you're a beginner and if you don't have extra tools on hand. So it looks like it's going to be the second largest Allen wrench key. Yes. All right, so now when I tighten this in, one thing I want to try to make sure I do is have it, parallel to the string basically. I don't want to, here, let me loosen this. I don't want to have it on an angle like this or too low. I really want it to be straight on. I want that arrow to fly straight through there. So just kind of, make sure you watch for that as you're putting it on. And you can also look through this rest on the back here to see if it lines up with this front bolt hole here, and that'll help you make sure you're getting it on level the way you need it. Now, I didn't think of it, but I should have put a little blue Loctite on there. So the sight also comes with a sight light, which is very helpful, especially if you're hunting and you want to shoot out of a ground blind. You often need extra light. Or if you're a hunter and it's getting to be early in the morning or late at night, sometimes you need a little extra light to see your pins. It's still legal shooting hours, but you just need a little extra light. For the sight light, we're simply going to screw that in the top of the sight guard. This is called the sight guard right here. We're going to screw that down into the top, snug, and I could have put blue Loctite on that as well. And the way you turn your light on is tightening this little screw piece on the top, as you can see. So that's nice to have a sight light. There are 2 screws that come to hold this on. Now, for this sight, we have 2 slots where these screws can go into, and then the frontmost slots here, that's what your quiver will screw into. Now, these 2 screw holes are fairly close together. I like to put my sights as far out as I can because they often fit in the circle of the sight guard, fits inside the circle of the peep for aiming a little better a lot of times. But you can play around with it, and if one works better for you than the other, then go with that. Now, it is nice that they give you a set of Allen wrench keys to fit all these screws. Not many bow manufacturers do that. And at this price range, they're offering you a pretty nice setup for the price. I'll put my Loctite away. You just put a little dab of Loctite on each screw. Okay, now I'm going to get an arrow here, and I'm going to put it on and drop it down in. Now, one thing you can do, there's different things you can do to check to see if your arrow rest is on where it needs to be. I really like using these little levels. You can buy them very inexpensively through Amazon. I will put links for this, and the next tool that I'm going to use, I will put links for them in the description section of this video on my YouTube channel, so you can check that out. But this level simply clips on to the string there. I do have my bow in a bow vise. If you don't have a bow vise, I used to hang my bow from the ceiling with a string and then hold it vertically. So I hold this one on the string. It's made so that you can clip it on here where the serving is, but the serving is never long enough to fit both of these clip arms. It's fatter, the serving is fatter at the base here, and it's thinner if you're off the serving. That's going to throw off your bubble reading for your level. So I gently hold it against the string here, and I work with it on that level there. Okay, so the back bubble's on, and then I look at the front bubble, and the front bubble it's back farther, so I have to raise the rest just a little bit. I'll go ahead and do that and get my rest square, and then I'll come back to you in a second here. Actually, I double checked it after I turned the camera off there, and it was on, so I don't have to make an adjustment. Now, for getting your center shot, it looks like my arrow is sticking out, like to the left, pretty significantly. It is. And I will just take this out of the vise. I'll hold it up for the camera. We'll see if that's visible to you or not. And I'm holding it straight on. You can see the arrow is kind of pointed off that way, which means my rest needs to go in. Now, one thing that I've used different techniques over the years. I've used a string from the center of the limb bolts, from the top to the bottom limb bolt, and cut an arrow off, and I'd use that to see if it was on center. Another thing you can do is look from the top down and line it up with the stabilizer. But what I use now, the thing I like to do most, is I use this little gauge I got for $20. It's a digital caliber. Again, $20. This is a lifelong investment if you take care of it, and it makes setting your center shot on your bow so nice and easy. So if I turn it on, this is actually going to give me a measurement as I slide it out this way, and I just use this against the riser at the front and the back of the riser. So I'll put it here to the outside edge of the arrow, and then when I put it here, this piece is not coming in contact with the riser here, which means it needs to go in. And so I'll move the rest in until it hits at the equal number for both. Let's see what we get here. All right, so where I'm getting center shot is roughly around 23.7 millimeters, which is also 0.932 inches. So that's right around where I'm getting my center shot here, the arrow in the center from my right to left. So the way I adjusted the little bolt right here, you loosen that and that enables you to move left to right. Now when I moved it in, because of the shape of the riser here, the inside of the rest was hitting the riser, so I had to move the rest back. And when I did that and tightened it back up, my vertical alignment was off just a little bit, and I was happy with where I was at, making this parallel to there. So I just moved the rest up a little. To do that, there's a screw inside here. You loosen that, move the rest up, and then tighten it back up. One thing I always do in my testing, and I'm going to do that in my next video or in a separate video, is I put the bow on the draw board and check the draw weight at each draw length setting, because it will go down as you go down in draw length. But they actually have a chart in the manual that gives you all that. So that's exciting to see. Now the number one setting for the draw length mod gives you 31-inch draw according to here. So the next thing you want to do is set it to your draw length. I'm going to set it to 31-inch draw length because I'm going to start there in my speed testing. I'm going to shoot this through the chronograph with a 350 grain arrow for 70 pounds and see what kind of speeds I get, but that'll be in my next video. So make sure you stay tuned for that. For now, let me go ahead and put this on the number one setting and see how that works out. To do that, I actually received a separate bag in the box that says really large draw length wrench. So this did not come in the same box as, or in the same bag as all the other Allen wrench keys that I have sitting on the workbench here. So just if you're buying this bow, keep an eye out for that. This is in a separate bag labeled draw length wrench. We're going to need that to loosen our screws here to change the draw length module. Okay, so I've moved the draw length mods. That little Allen wrench key that I showed you is for the inside. There's a flat-headed one on this side that it fits. On the other side, there's a larger Allen wrench key to fit that. You're going to need to move both, and you want to make sure that you tighten up both after doing an adjustment. So keep that in mind. Always double check, tighten both sides after you've made an adjustment. Now I'm at 31-inch draw. My limb bolts are maxed out. Let's see what it looks like on the draw board. Am I getting 31-inch and 70 pounds? I still have my safety lanyard on there, but I want to mention what I just learned is that the number one setting is not where the bolt goes in. I just put the bolt in the number one there, and it gave me 29-inch draw length. So the actual line on this little round piece here is where that will point at the number one. So this bolt will actually be at the end here. So when you're setting the draw length, I just learned by making the mistake. I didn't look at the manual. That was my fault. I looked at the manual afterwards. And it's good though. So now I can point that out to you. Make sure you're looking and lining it up with this hash mark on the round piece here with the number corresponding over here. So our number one, which is currently at the bolt, needs to be down here in line with that. And that should give us the 31-inch. Let me do that and I'll be right back. Okay, our peak weight was right at 70, which is good. Our current draw length, I'm hitting 30 inches here, my first draw stop is hitting right there, and this one is quite a bit off. Once I get the timing on, that's going to put me more at that 31-inch draw length setting. The way to adjust for this type of an error is we need this cam to be sped up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is take this off and add a little twist to the cable in this cam that's hitting already. I'll put a half of a twist in and we'll see what that does. I will also mention that my peak weight was hitting right around 17.5 inches. When I got to the 17.5 inches in the draw length, I was hitting peak weight. Okay, my draw stop timing is right on now. I added a half a twist to the bottom cam cable, and that puts me at 69.78 pounds and 30 and pretty much 3/4, maybe even 7/8 inch draw, very close to the 31 inch. Okay, I'm going to shoot a bare shaft. I always like to shoot a bare shaft, especially when you have this type of rest, because fletching can come in contact with these things and throw it off. So we just want to see what's the bow going to do on its own without any interference for things like fletching. Let's check that first. I like to stand several feet. This is about 5, where my foot is roughly 5 feet away from my paper over here. I'm gonna draw back, and I'm gonna drop at my knees just because I'm tall. I want to shoot with the bow. I don't want to shoot on a downward angle. I want to shoot with the arrow going straight through the paper to give me the most accurate reading I possibly can. So now I'm at 70 pounds. I've got the bow tuned. Perfect. Let's take a look at this. And that's called a bullet hole. That means your tuning is on. Okay, so let's talk about what happens if your tuning is off. Let's say that the knock went through way to the left. There's different ways of dealing with that. If you don't know if your rest is perfectly centered, then you could just do a slight movement of the rest to see how that corrects it. Let's say that corrects it here on paper, but now you're out on the range and you're shooting at 30 and 40 yards. And you notice that as you go back each 10-yard increment, your arrow drifts farther to the side. That means that something else is off with the tuning of the bow. That's where I like to get into yoke tuning. So if I know that my rest is dead center, which I do know, let's say I had a left tear here. What I would do is I would actually add twist to the left side of both yokes and shoot it again, and that will help correct the arrow flight. So you're gonna have to make a decision. Do I think my rest is dead on? And if it is, then you want to yoke tune your bow. For a right tear, let's say your fletch is going through, or excuse me, your knock is going through the paper to the right of where the point of the arrow is. Then you'll do that. You'll add a twist to both of the yokes on the right side of the bow as you're holding it like this, and that will help correct the arrow flight. Anytime you're adding twist to a string or cable, whether it's a yoke or here or the cable here, clockwise will always add twist. Counterclockwise will take twist out. If your strings and cables were made by a reputable manufacturer of strings and cables, that is an industry standard. So when you're doing that, just watch what you're doing and verify, double check, make sure that a right twist is adding twist, or excuse me, a clockwise twist is adding twist to the cable or yoke, whatever. So this bow is ready to go. In the next video, I'm gonna do a full review and shoot it through the chronograph at each draw length to see what speeds am I getting with a 5 grain per pound arrow at 70 pounds. 31-inch draw, 30, all the way down. Let's see what the speeds are. Stay tuned for that. Also, I am giving this bow away to a viewer of mine who lives in Australia. Terrible accent impression there, I apologize. But I have another one. They were so generous to give me 2 Dragon X8 bows that I want to bless my viewers with I want 2 viewers to get one of these. And the next bow that I'm giving away is probably going to be within a month. I'm just going to go live. I'm not going to tell you when. I'm going to go live. If you're a subscriber and you have that bell icon clicked, then you're going to get notified when I go live. Somebody on that live broadcast who comments, shows up in my feed, I'm going to pick one of those individuals, and that they're going to win the bow. So make sure you stay tuned for the next video for the review. Click the bell icon to make sure you're ready. And I'm also giving a flagship bow away in the month of August. And for that giveaway, I'm putting a scripture verse in each episode. The scripture verse for this episode, John chapter 11, verses 1 through 44. That's the Gospel of John chapter 11, verses 1 through 44. Good luck to all those who are getting into either of the bow giveaways. Thanks again for tuning in to this episode. Until next time, take care and God bless.